Hello, everyone. This is Mirko from the Wolf Practice. So I'm very pleased and honored to have here today with me my friend Najib Rahman, who is gonna help us to, dive a little bit deeper into the nuances of blockchain and blockchain in supply chain in particular. And as I was mentioning, it's an honor but also a pleasure because Naj is a good friend of mine, and we go back to the time we were both employed at Pfizer. And then, basically our paths diverged a little bit, but we always kept in touch. And, talking about blockchain this week in this educational series of the Wolf Practice, Naj came top of my mind for obvious reasons, for the, for the care, but also for the esteem that I nurture towards this very good man who I have the pleasure to let you know yourself. So Naj, do you want to introduce yourself just a little bit about your background?
Thank you, Mirko, and that's very kind of you. I'm a bit embarrassed and a bit blushing now, if you can tell. Very quickly, as Mirko's already said, we have a shared history at Pfizer for many years. Mirko obviously coming from a very supply logistics focused side of the business. I was involved with the data analytics and IT ERP infrastructures that Pfizer were rolling out Europe and arguably globally. Our paths crossed on several occasions in that journey, and it was brilliant to get to know Mirko in the many kind of operations that he was involved with and how we were supporting him in developing that infrastructure. I left a bit before Mirko did to go join a startup that was developing a blockchain-based technology for supply logistics. Primarily for small molecule, so regular pills and patients. And then eventually I was deeply involved with the work that we were doing around advanced therapies. So your cell and gene therapies, the examples obviously are like CAR T type therapies and gene therapies that are now being developed for all sorts of conditions, rare diseases that are now potentially treatable. The complexity of those supply chains demanded a more sophisticated approach for supply logistics. So that was where I sort of worked for a while, working with another company that was we developed IP for and global patents that we developed. So I worked on those to ensure technologies that would support a secure supply chain for advanced therapies. More recently, I've now set up another business. I moved on, wanted to kind of work more in the developing markets, in the global majority, if that's the right term now. Still focused in supply logistics using a blockchain-based technology. We're now working with a technology that was developed here in Europe, and we're hoping to commercialize that for markets in Africa and Asia. So that's where I am now. And our new company is called Lydia RX, which I'll give a plug for, if that's all right, Mirko, with some exciting new opportunities to talk about shortly. So that's me.
Yes, fantastic. So, Naja, I would say probably the first thing that I would like to ask is what do you think is most disruptive? What is very special about blockchain? What makes blockchain what blockchain is, and particularly let's look at it also from a supply chain perspective. And then later on, obviously, I want to go back to your new venture, your new company, because I'd like to find out a little bit more about it.
It's a really good question, Mirko. There are many aspects that we could talk about in terms of what makes blockchain potentially disruptive. If I were to focus on one, it would be the fact that it's allowing data to be shared in a real-time space in a way that's never been achievable to date. For any of us that have worked in the logistics aspects of it, and then the collation of the data to enable improvements, so we could simulate, create scenarios that we could develop strategies to address issues of resilience and efficiency and the balance between the two. That was always a challenge, huge challenge. In actual fact, many of those gaps enabled actors to come in to take advantage. Some were creating grey areas, some were basically creating black markets. And that's where I think we're going to see a great disruption, that it will open up things and it will make these supply chains more transparent and open, so we can, it's not just about eliminating, I guess, the bad actors, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we get, in our case, the right medicine to the right people at the right time, so that they can actually get the cures that they need or the treatments they need to address the unmet need. So I think that's where we're going to see some really exciting things and changes happening. And it's not to say that there won't be opportunities for people to make and grow and develop their businesses. I think they'll come. It's just going to happen in a different way now, hence the nature of disruption.
That actually makes a lot of sense, and that's something that we were talking about earlier this week in the newsletter, really, the article, the blog post that went out on the website. Many elements that seems to be very different compared to before. Transparency, the mutability, the sort of like reliability that the system has, and I think potentially some industries are going to be benefiting from this more than others. Of course, I'm not partial when I say that because of my background. Probably neither are you. But what do you think in terms of like industries and industry supply chains? Blockchain have the greatest potential to be disruptive.
Well, clearly, obviously, one that we've worked in for many years, life sciences and pharma have had huge issues with supply logistics in terms of the security and legitimacy of drugs that are delivered to patients, particularly in the global majority, where we need to look at how we're going to improve that. It's clearly a burden. The World Health Organization have acknowledged that. But leaving that aside, and I don't want to leave it too much aside because that's my bread and butter, that's what I do. But I think anywhere where trust is a challenge and where we as consumers and customers of product or service are looking to ensure reputation is maintained and that we can believe in reliability of whatever the service is or the product's being delivered. Because if our lives depend on it, then it's going to be important. So I would say things where you've got aviation, for example. There's ongoing challenges right now, as we know, within certain airline manufacturers who are having problems with the quality of their product, without mentioning too many names. The food industry, the food sector, that's everyone has to eat. The provenance of our food and what happens to our food, I think that's really important. I want to know what I buy in the shop, in the supermarket, or my local convenience store is what it says it is on the label or the tin that I'm buying it from within. So I think those sort of sectors are really important. Even in terms of our everyday, we rely on the electronics. We're presenting and doing this call on a computer, so semiconductors, all of the kind of bits that you need around that to understand how these batteries, the components, where they come from, are they sourced ethically? Can we believe that when we build the batteries that drive all of these machines, the cars and what have you, are not going to be doing damage to other parts of the world, both in terms of their people and in terms of the environment? We want to understand that. So I think all of these areas and industries are going to require a provenance that is not achievable right now. So those are the sort of sectors I'd look at.
Okay, very good. Honestly, that opens up to a number of considerations and questions, but we're going to stop here for the time being, and we'll get back to these much more particularly talking about challenges, missed opportunities, and likes in the next episode of this mini-series. So Nash, thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you in episode 2.